Night!
Tonight on Game Night, it's our 2019 Spiel des Jahres episode, where we're going to discuss the three main games, Werewolf, Llama, and Just One, as well as the Kennerspiel games, Detective, Carpe Diem, and Wingspan. So join Nikki, Lincoln, Rusty, Mark, and myself, Dave, as we talk about these games and make some predictions. As previously mentioned, the games we will be discussing are the regular main prize for Spiel des Jahres, Just One, Llama, and Werewolf, and then the Kennerspiel. And you don't really get a better visual metaphor for the fact that the Kennerspiel are sort of the heavier games by looking at these box sizes.
They're physically heavier too.
Detective, Carpe Diem, and Wingspan. Let's start with the main prize. And Mark, why don't you pick one and start us off?
Okay, for Spiel des Jahres, let's start. I think we got to start by talking about Llama because it is the odd. I don't know. It's
odd man out.
It's
odd
something,
game out.
Right? So it's a little tiny box, which once upon a time we didn't think little tiny box games could win these awards, but there was the Mind last year, and that was
it didn't
great.
win though.
It didn't win, but it was
did win a few years
Hanabi
back.
won, right? And so here's another little box game. It's Reiner Knizia. So when I saw one, I like little games anyway, and I like Knizia games, so I was all over this one. And I have played it a bunch of times trying to figure out what is so special about this game. It's fun. I have fun with it. I've had fun with it with different groups, different numbers, different ages, all that sort of thing. That sounds great. But this is Spiel des Jahres. And every time I play it, I think, like, since it's Knizia, there's something in here that I'm not quite seeing. I've seen, Eric's video where he waxes poetic about it and everything. But I don't quite, I feel like I'm missing something. I don't get what's so amazing about it.
I love that Eric did put that much thought into it. It's one of the great things about what he does. I will go off on that tangent for just a second, but anyway.
Nikki, what did you think?
I enjoy it. I have fun playing it. I'm kind of with Mark on where I just feel like the times I've won, I've been lucky in my hands.
Yeah.
I like it, and when you play it with a bigger group versus a smaller group, there's definitely a change in the game and the feel of the game and the reason why you're playing it. So when it's a bigger group, it's a push your luck. In my opinion, it's like a push your luck game, and I have a lot of fun with push your luck games, and I see it more as like a party fun kind of thing. When you get down to 2 players, 3 players, it's a little bit more of a different sort of strategy, and that's good because then it's got the good flexibility for number of players. So I have fun with it, but I still feel like it's a luck of the draw, in my opinion.
My opinion is turning on that one. I mean, I still feel they're all fantastic games, but Llama is an interesting game. I've got to play 2 times 2 players when I didn't really know the game, and then it was mostly 3 because I came home from Nuremberg and played it with Rusty and Nikki, and we also played Heul Doch at that time, which is another similar kind of game, not really similar but similar, and I like that game slightly more, but playing this game more now, I feel that there's a strategy there to lots of play, right? And maybe if you do that with every game, there's lots of strategy, that you develop, right? That's one of the things we don't do nowadays, which for me, this one encourages lots of play, right? You go through the game really quickly and you see, I got a terrible hand that time, right? Then sometimes you're like, how can I, as you get more players, your determination, like, it is how much can I go out with? In other words, trying to play the last card is great, but you can't always do that. So how do I mitigate the disaster of my hand to try to go out with the least amount of points, right? And then leaving the other players potentially with more. It's a weird deal, and Dave had some griefs about, like, do I draw cards? If once somebody draws cards, like the game changes. But I think it's very good. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure about this whole category is very weird to me this year.
Well, let's ask Rusty, because you win this game more in theory than you should if it's truly luck-based.
Well, I think it's that I'm just trying different things at different times. I know that Lincoln was just mentioning taking points and trying to mitigate the number of points you're taking to take the fewest. I've actually had times where I've folded for the number of points I'm taking intentionally. I'd be taking more points than I could have just so that I can reduce the chips down to a single black chip or two black chips, so that on a future turn I have a better chance of discarding more points or having fewer points. And I mean, that's just one of the little things that I could try and around. There are different things of,
the coloring up thing of the game is one of the neat, weird levels of this game, right? Like being able to go out with 10s instead, where you can dump a 10. I mean, we saw Rusty go to 0 and Nikki go to 2 on their final hand, which is amazing as well. Considering I think I was at nearly 40 and Dave was nearly at 40.
I tend to end the game.
Yeah,
I tend to end this game. So the first time I played it was 6, and I think I like it the least of all of you guys. I don't mind playing it because it is certainly light and fast enough. It is one of those games that I will probably inspire people to go, wait, did we miss a rule? And go back and read the rules again to see if there's something there. I think, well, you made an interesting point. The original premise of the Spiel des Jahres was to bring games to the attention of people that might not notice them. And that, coupled with the fact that it's a Knizia, I think do this game a slight disservice, right? The fact that it was nominated makes you think oh, okay, well, if these are the 3 games, right? And obviously the nominations are to taste, and the choices are sometimes weird to personal people because you have your own preferences. But you think, well, okay, if this was nominated, that means there must be something to this other than the games that didn't make it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that, for me, does the game a slight disservice because I'm looking for more there than is there.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean,
I keep looking.
We played I will spoil. We played the game today just to give it more time because I feel I don't know if I've played it enough. I mean, I don't know how the jury thinks, right? What I don't know. It's a weird choice. The whole category is weird to me this year. It's a very they're all good games.
Yeah.
Some being better than others potentially, but it's just weird. It's a weird category. These are 2. Anyway, we'll go on. Once we get to the big discussion.
Can we move on?
Yeah, I think we can all talk about it. Sure.
Since you're on a roll, pick another one and
take
us there.
Another game that I think is really cool, I think they're all good, but Werewords is really a neat game, but it has the weird werewolf layer that ultimately kind of hurts it for me, but it also makes the game deeper, right?
When you say the werewolf layer, you mean the idea that someone has to lie?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. But it's something hard to wrap your head around, right? This game is it's because Just One is a cooperative game, right?
Right.
Werewords is a weird one that you just win the round. There's no whoever does the team win or does the werewolf win, right?
Right.
And I know that there's more categories, and I think I mentioned this in the video. I don't really like the complication of adding that stuff, but that doesn't mean anything. Nikki has the same
different
the roles,
characters.
Yeah. Nikki has that same problem with werewolf, right? Where there's just too many different characters to really you lose the focus of the game, but that's part of Ted's thing. Ted is really great at creating, and that's the thing. The characters are the roles are cool. Yeah. I just don't want to play with them necessarily, right? I love the idea of all of them. Almost every time, it's amazing how much has gone into it, and I like that he's taken a 20 questions type game and put that layer on top of it, which is really cool. It's just got some weird things that you got to do. The one thing that we should point out here that is different about this version versus the German version actually includes a list of words, is what I've heard. This requires an app. You could make your own list of words and things like that, but you need an app.
So you don't need an app for the German version?
Absolutely.
Is there an app, though, for the German version?
I'm sure there must be, but I don't know. I'm so out of loop on how that stuff, because it might not even be on the store for all I know, on the app stores.
Right. What do you think, Nikki?
I enjoyed this. I mean, that is Bezier's thing to do werewolf-themed games. I think without the werewolf theme on this, it would just turn into another 20-question game that we've all seen before. So I think adding the character roles and figuring out how to make them work with a word game is very interesting and adds something different to just figure out the word type of thing. It also makes it different that you've got a werewolf and he's doing his own thing. It's not a cooperative party, everybody win kind of together thing. So I found it, I liked it more than I thought I would going into it.
Right. You like playing werewolf, right? I mean,
well,
I do to a point. Like Lincoln was saying, all the different characters that are now in Werewolf, they're fun to play sometimes, but playing just a vanilla game of Werewolf is so satisfying.
Right.
So yes, every once in a while, sure, throw in some of the odd characters, but vanilla is also plenty fun.
Scott when he was telling us about what he was picking, one of the things he mentioned about this in relation to you is you didn't actually ask many questions, right? So, I mean, ultimately, how does that work for you? I almost feel like you barely asked any questions the entire game.
That's kind of the way I play Werewolf, too.
Yeah, you can sit back in Werewolf and
I listen.
Right.
I just listen to what other people are doing and the directions they're going.
It's hard with this game. You got 4 minutes to make that determination,
4 minutes.
right?
And that's another thing that, of course, makes it more of a game, because it's in a package, is that there is a time limit. Mm-hmm. You're not going on forever like Werewolf.
Well, it depends on the moderator in Werewolf, right? There are guys that like move it along.
And there's an agreement to play like a 10-minute long day and then we're done. And, you can do house rules and things like that too. So, but in this game, I like that there's a limit, and then at the end there's a decision, like figure out the word, and then there's the whole werewolf thing, like who was the werewolf, point them out. So it adds a little bit to just a word game.
One of our viewers mentioned on this one that they house rule it where the questions go around the table. Oh. You're allowed to pass, but it comes to you instead of just somebody dominating, right? Which would potentially get Nikki or someone who's not as outgoing more involved. Now, that may be your choice, that you're not, it wasn't being outgoing, it was just that you're listening. But with a 4 minute time, I have a hard time. Like, there's too much for me to determine. I'm still about Kevin with his being the werewolf and the mayor thing, which I don't like that element of the game.
Oh, see, I like that element a lot.
I understand it. What's
nice
cool about it?
To it.
You need it. Don't get me wrong. You need it. I just don't like it. Ultimately, it's a bunch of lying, and you're like, how do I figure this out, right? In 4 minutes' time. If the guy's good, right? But then
I have forgiven you. I have forgiven you for that game.
What did I do?
Years ago. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there was a werewolf game where I lied a lot, and Dave was so mad at me at the end because we won, but I was doing what the game required, and I've never played werewolf again since.
Yeah.
Mark.
I should say at the outset, I'm not a werewolf guy.
Okay.
I don't like werewolf. I don't like social deduction games. There's been a whole raft of them in the last 5 years, it feels like, right? And so when Werewords came around, I thought, well, if it wasn't for Spiel des Jahres nominee, I wouldn't have even played it, because I just thought it's not my kind of thing. But since it was nominated, I thought I'm excited to give it a try. And I had a pretty good time with it, but just pretty good. Part of it's just like you said, the werewolf layer. There's an earlier game, Insider, from Oink, that has a similar sort of thing. It takes 20 questions and has and my friends told me, oh, you should play this. I said, no, there's lying and social deduction. I don't like that. And they said, no, you'll like this one because it's really more of a party game. And I played it, and sure enough, I liked it. And then this game sort of builds on that same idea too, but adds all that werewolf stuff on it, all the roles and things. And to me, it just way overshot. To me, this is like a game with an expansion already built in, and you have to play with the expansion, which is all the character rules and things like that. And I'm not an expansions guy generally. I like the plain vanilla, like you're talking about. So vanilla, not even werewolf, But so I did like. I tell you what I did like about it was the production of it, not the app part. I don't really like apps needed in games, but like you say, the German one comes with its own cards. But I like the bit about just the tokens. The way it makes the yes and no votes, and you guys are way off, and what was there's another one. It's like you're really close to it, or something like that. And I thought, oh, that's smart. Just little physical game design stuff that helps the party game
Absolutely.
along. That's really cool.
Right.
That's my favorite part of the game. The rest of it, not so much.
And I like that the yes or no's are tracked to the person specifically that asked those questions as well, right? So you can kind of see if that helps you. Or
those are cool things. I'd like to see.
Well, Deborah was
move into other party games.
She was the bomb when she did it, and she was super uncomfortable about it, right? But she had enough questions that you would never doubt that she was. That you would doubt that she wasn't a villager.
Let's blame Kevin for that one too.
Yeah.
Rusty, what did you think?
I'm kind of in between on everyone. I'm, again, not a werewolf player. It's not my type of game. Social deduction doesn't work for me, but Insider does happen to work. So I was a little leery going in on this one, but I actually found that I did enjoy it more than I was expecting with our group and a couple other groups that I've played it with. But I've also found that the group really makes a difference as to how the game comes out.
That's a lot of party games, though, right?
Right, but I think that could deter from the game here if you don't get the right type of group, if you get people that are very much sitting back and not forcing that round the table and everyone having to ask a question or passing. You get people that may sit back and not quite get the feel of the game.
Right.
So it gets a lackluster feel from those people, and they don't necessarily want to try again.
But I mean, that's not the fault of the game.
No, I don't.
I mean,
No.
arguably the mind is the same way, right?
Right.
True. We love the mind, but there are people out there that not only don't like the mind, but don't even understand what the game is.
Right.
And they're not necessarily wrong. Like, if it's not for you, it's not for you.
That's right. And that's why I think this game may not have as large of an audience. It may not attract everyone that it could.
Sure.
And stating that, hey, this is, a Spiel des Jahres winner, you might get people that come up and go, wow, this didn't really work for me.
Well, I mean, that's exactly the mind last year, right?
Right.
I mean, exactly. It was
Right.
the fact that it got, like I think I said during our discussion video, the fact that it got nominated was its reward, right?
Well, Rusty just said winner. So are you being...
Oh, no.
You just said winner?
No, I said if it were the winner. If it were the winner.
Okay.
I like this more, this cliche, right? I like this more than I thought. I like this, I think, more than you guys did. I really like the app, actually. I thought the app was very cool. I like the time limit. There are not a lot of games that give you kind of a hard time limit. That's kind of neat. It adds some excitement to the thing, and also it lets you know, this game's going to take 5 minutes.
Well, it's the other thing about it that we are not. It's the same as playing Llama a bunch of times. Werewolves grows and the game gets more enjoyable the more you play it, the more you get the group. It's what it is. These are all of these games are play it many times. Right. That's what's super impressive about this year. It's a weird year. Most games are not necessarily that type of game. Last year we had Azul. Not that you won't play them a bunch, but they don't necessarily need multiple plays to really grow and your appreciation to grow. All games will benefit from multiple plays unless it's something flawed where you've done it all in 3 times, Right. But all 3 of these are powerful for that.
Yeah.
Good point.
That is not a bad point at all. Rusty, take us to the third game. Talk about Just One.
Just One. Just One is the one I've probably played the most, just because it comes out and it morphs. People come in and out of the game because this game, even though the base rules are a 13-card game and you play it cooperatively, it always seems to, after that 13th card, we move into, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. And then you get people come out, well, what's that? And you hand them a board and they join in. And it's just the enjoyment of doing something together and being creative about it. And I know that even we've worked with changing rules and tweaking, how many cards do we have up there? And can we get 2 clues with 1 word? And it's the type of thing that I see coming out more of a party game. It's definitely probably the most party game of these that I would wind up playing with anyone. I've even handed out copies of this to people who played it the first time going, here, have your own copy.
Well, this one goes to 20. That one's truly a party game.
That is one of the things about Werewords. Werewords does go to 20, whereas Just One is limited to 7 or 8 if you have one person without
3 to 7, though, but could you really play it with 3? It seems weird. What if you both cancel, then you're just done?
Yeah.
All right, what do we write?
Yeah.
So, I just enjoy this one for the fun factor and the ability to start, short game, long game, we can just continue playing.
Right.
Lincoln.
I love Just One. It is probably my favorite of the bunch. Repos does... So this is a game that was actually released before. Came out a couple years ago as We Are the Word, and it was designed by the guys who did Seventh Continent, which is very anomalous. I think I mentioned that when we played the game. But it's fantastic. And I don't know what, if anything, changed, but I wouldn't be surprised if something did change, because these guys develop the games. They know... Rusty's correct. You could play this with 8 boards. You just pass around the boards.
Sure.
but it probably gets to the point where it gets too chaotic and you have too many canceled words if you go too much higher than that. So these guys, they're really good at developing games. They know how to make it slick and smooth, and it's really fun. Great components. I like having. I mean, I feel with 3 or 4, it might not be as much fun. Now, I haven't played it with 3 or 4.
I played with 4, and it actually works surprisingly.
Okay. Well, I mean, again,
It's
they
kind of
developed
on
the
hairy
games.
edge, don't you think?
Yeah, but it still works.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, I'd like to do it more. It's always been a 7. It's been the max every time I think we've played it.
really?
You know, except here because we did 6. But generally, it's almost always because we played it at conventions.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost all the time. We'll never play that here, Nikki and I. I mean, we never get enough people, in my opinion, to play that game correctly. So it would only be a party game, which is cool. I mean, and it's a really, really great game. It's really fun. The fun of, you know, am I second guessing this? Should I not do this? Am I going to match somebody? And then the worst is when the obvious word that would really help is skipped because everybody has second guessed themselves out of putting that word down.
Right.
But I love that element of the game, and I love how deep it can get with the word. You know, the clues. They're fantastic.
Oh.
Nikki.
So, okay, to add to that, deep with the clues, I enjoy that a lot, and the second guessing of that is really neat. And I think that brings something to the word game category of the second guessing and getting deeper. I enjoyed this game. I have a lot of fun playing this game. One thing I do want to say, which might be kind of funny because there isn't that much to the game, but I love those boards. I love those plastic boards. They're shiny. They look nice on the table. You're not using you're not doing paper and showing it around, and it's just a plastic dry erase thing. And I don't know. I like that part of the game.
Totally.
And looking at them like nameplates all lined up when you're the one trying to figure out what the card is in front of you.
Good functional design is
Yeah,
always
absolutely.
sexy.
The original
Yeah.
game, I
It
think, is
is.
like
It is.
word
Yeah.
bubbles or something like that. You know, dry erase
Yeah,
boards.
and
So-
party games aren't really known for good, good physical design, right?
Right.
They have lots of little
Well, the
pads of
easels
paper
are
and
what
things
make
like
this.
that.
Pads of
I
paper,
brings
yeah.
it, like Nikki said, like not having to look down and seeing them all.
Yeah.
It wasn't as great for camera, but it's definitely
good
great
for
for play.
Yeah.
The list of words and the random picking of that on the cards is makes it kind of interesting and playable because then you're getting a lot more word choices on a card, and in a weird way it's funny because if the person playing says I choose 3 and everyone else at the table's like
Right.
I was hoping that he was gonna ask for 5
Yeah.
or
Well, it's all
one
random,
of the
so it's
other
like- Yeah.
numbers.
That's
So
a fun little element.
that's
Yeah.
it's a fun little element. It's a party game, definitely.
Well, the dread in our voices when you see the cards, you're like, oof, please don't. You know,
Well,
Yeah.
what's cool,
Yeah.
right, is there's a certain elegance to that. They could have easily had 6 words to a card and given you a die to roll, and I actually think it's great that they didn't do that. There's something interesting to sort of choosing your own fate. There's like a weirdness to it that
Yeah.
somehow is really cool.
Yeah.
I really like Just One, and I think it's my favorite of these. I'm sure it is, actually. And you guys have made a lot of good points already. I think it's taken me a long time to kind of reach my center on party games and figure out what it's like. You know, I've talked about this before. I don't like the ones where you sing or dance or do anything that's embarrassing. But the ones where you just like to be clever, that's good. You know, I really liked when Codenames came out a few years ago. But Codenames, as great as it is it's a pretty intense, it's a thoughtful thing. It's the sort of game where people, even if, on your team, can feel pressure. And Just One is a co-op party game, right? You all win together. And it's just... And a lot of other party games, whether they're trivia knowledge or matching other things, are like someone can be the goat of the table, right? And they're just not doing very well. And that
I
doesn't
thought you meant greatest of all time.
could be either one. Actually, it could be either one.
It
Right?
has been co-opted from
That's
our
true.
generation.
That's true. Okay. All right. But this thing flattens out both meanings of the word,
Sure,
right? You're
sure.
all together in it. And I think it's just a really. And I haven't played with a wide range of people, but I've
Right.
heard other people. We were talking to Scott before, and another friend of mine who's played with huge age ranges, and I wouldn't think that the game. A lot of word games don't work with a wide range of kids and adults playing together, but I guess this one really does. So I think it's just got great breadth, and we said before, the Spiel des Jahres. I don't know if it's explicitly said anywhere, but it's kind of an ambassador to the hobby,
Right,
And I
right.
think this one does a great job.
Oh,
of that.
100%. I mean, it's I think it's clearly the best of the three, as we will all discover later when we make our predictions. And the only knock that I have on the game ultimately doesn't matter to me because I rarely play it by the actual rules. I'm not a fan that the rules don't encourage you to guess wrong, right? That you're penalized for being wrong.
That is a
You get
little
double
weird.
whammy on that one. Yeah, it's rough.
but who cares ultimately, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I think the episode that we shot and maybe one other time have been the only 2 times out of at least 30 that I've even played by the actual rules. Mostly we just do what you were talking about before. It's just like, I'm not going to... Why play 13 cards? We'll just keep playing until we're tired of doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? And then everything else you guys said. I mean, really, it's very simple and elegant, and it's easy to cover. Nikki.
Yeah.
Let's move to the other side of the table.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and pick one of the Kennerspiel games and start us off.
This is hard even to pick be the one to pick the first one to talk about.
All right.
Let's talk about Detective.
Okay.
Because it is very different type of game than Wingspan and Carpe Diem. You're investigating a crime, and it's got an app. I enjoy the app. I enjoy the that they put this extra
It's actually not an app, though. It's a website.
Right,
Yeah.
the website. That they put this extra effort into designing a website that acts like a web, the web. So when you're looking up the type of...
You can actually look up things because they've
planted,
from history.
right?
Yeah, I mean, there's elements from history.
So
in there.
you really go to Wikipedia to find out about this particular weapon or whatever, and I found that very interesting. And the amount of time it must have took to search this out and decide, let's use this element from the real world and incorporate it into the game is really interesting, fascinating to me. The gameplay itself is extremely stressful because I feel like the timeline, it takes this much time to get to this location and you've used up this much of your day is extremely tight and extremely stressful. Part of me just wants to sit and roam and look around and experience everything.
To deep dive everything.
Yeah,
that's,
to deep
that's
dive
Scott's
everything.
thing too.
But then that turns it into this epic game, which is not the goal. The goal is to help the police solve this case or get them more information so they can solve this case. And it's a real case and there's real stakes. And so it can't be this epic. I mean, it could, but
well, they do tie together. They do tie.
Yeah.
They ultimately tie the stories together, which is kind of interesting.
So all of it was different and new to me. Even though we've been seeing some other detective crime searching things, this one's very adult, very much a search for it, hardcore thing versus some of the other ones which have a little bit more of, I would say, a playful feel to them.
So far, yeah. I mean,
so far.
I've not played. There's another detective that's coming out at Gen Con. Yeah, but I think it's City of Angels or something like that. I can't remember for sure. It's sad too because I'm friends with the designer and I love it, but I don't remember the full name. I think this game's fantastic. My most everything Nikki said is exactly right for me. The only weird thing is the amount of time it takes. Right? It is a deep game where. And we were punished. We played the very base. We played a demo. Well, it was truly it was a case. People were upset that we spoiled it on the show. I was told going in it was a demo case, but they gave it as part of the Kickstarter. So that was a downer because we weren't prepared to I don't like to spoil stuff on the show too much. But we've also played the base game as well and we surprised the designer in our bizarro choices.
Surprised him how?
Well, we had made choices where we kind of worked backwards, and we kept things were because you guys were fantastic in the one we did on the show. You were taking your TV detective stuff and applying it to the game, which I think I know Mike was with us on that game, and he and I were not as astute as you guys were in gleaning what was going on. The other thing that, and I don't mind, it's just, it's weird being punished for going backwards, right? Or spending too much time, right? For me, this is the most like a video game. And in video games, I'm not feeling that pressure. I'm sure there's plenty of games that do that, but mostly it's like I would like to experience a lot of it. And I know Scott is one of the things that he loves about video games. Like he'll continue to, if he has the time, he'll continue to keep playing to see as much as he can because, there's a lot of effort put into it. And that's the same thing for this. The weird thing for this game for me, and I'm pretty sure we maybe mentioned, is just the language. It kept pulling, as neat and deep it was, it's supposed to take place in Virginia and DC, and I felt like a true North American English speaker should have just, made a. I don't know how you do that. It seems to me like you need a true writer
like
to be
a Virginia editing path.
It felt like I kept going to the Eastern, Europe, Eastern Europe or something like that for whatever it was, and I know that it's Polish design and stuff, and Ignacy's fantastic. It's just that little tiny element took me out constantly. I'm like, well, that's a weird word. That doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I think it's
the senator who was killed with a pierogi.
Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, and I don't know how you would solve that problem. It seems to me like the amount of development that they put into this was pretty fantastic. So I don't, adding more cooks to the kitchen could be just a problem for sure.
All right, Rusty, what do you think?
Well, like Lincoln, I am actually the opposite of that a bit. I actually found that the writing was immersive and brought me into the environment. I didn't feel like I was not in that location. I felt like I was in Virginia.
You might have played a different campaign. And here's the other thing. I played this in prototype form initially. So maybe that changed. I should qualify that because who knows? I played that one that we played on the show, and that one had that same element going on, but I never played the polished initially, although I believe that it was final, but who knows? I mean, it was near, because we had actually had some feedback about a few things, and I think it was already too late, although I know that that's not entirely true, because I know there were some other corrections that were made. Ignacy's trying really hard to get that stuff correct. He's had problems with people complaining about rule books before, and it sucks, because, I mean, I think he makes great games.
That's very true. I played the demo version. The demo
first
version
case.
The case with the
basketball player. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but I think
aren't we in Cleveland in that one or something like that? Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
But I never felt like I was outside of the United States.
Right.
But I think where the difference in this came is that I wasn't the reader of the cards. I had other people reading the cards for me while I was basically immersed in this story that was occurring. It was like an audio book or a radio play that I was able to enjoy, where I could sit back and listen and absorb and take notes and then start to try to figure out, this is where the story is taking me. Let me ignore this path, let me head to that path. So I felt like I was a little more immersed in it, and I think I enjoyed the game because of that.
Mark, what did you think?
I had a really good time with Detective, and I was almost a little surprised. I mean, I bought it because I got, the nominees come out and I got all excited. And buy ones you can get. And it turned out our buddy Greg, Greg, he bought it too. So we both had two. We don't need two copies in the same group, right?
Yeah.
I've played, Chronicles of Crime, that came out this last year, and I played going way back, like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
I was going to bring that up.
And I still have Gumshoe on my shelf I'm going to play someday. And really? Okay. Well, well, here's the thing. Those other games, especially Consulting Detective, which won Spiel des Jahres a million years ago, those always made me feel kind of stupid. Like, I could never, figure it out, and we took, the maximum amount of time and had negative points because of the time we took and all that sort of stuff. So, I don't know how many of these sorts of games there are. It seems like they all use time as a resource. Time is something that you end up spending. But I liked, in this game, I did not actually feel as much time pressure, kind of because it had to end at a certain time.
Right.
And we've only played the first guy with the golden watch. So it's part of the very first one you start with in the box there, not the demo one. And already start to see, maybe, I think, some hooks into the larger story. That's kind of cool. And then when we played it, although we had just a medium score, it's like once we played it and got to the end and went through the scoring, that was part of the learning process too. It's like, oh, okay. And there's no way for them to really tell you this. Like, this is what they care about. This is what matters. And we looked at our score, and it was just okay. It was, as opposed to being hugely negative when I played Consulting Detective, But I thought, oh, okay, I got it. I'm kind of looking forward to the next one, right? And
Right.
I'm kind of interested in seeing how the story plays out, and I don't worry too much about the score, but it's nice not to be negative, you know?
Right.
And even though I bagged on the app for Werewords, I don't like the idea in general that games need a computer board games need a computer attached to them in
Right.
some form or another for you to play. But it worked pretty well in Detective because you end up sort of building a database as you go, and that felt kind of cool or central to how it works.
That. I
Right.
love
Well, it's
that
thematic,
element.
right?
It's
I mean,
thematic and it made sense, right? So, and I, in fact, both Greg and I also bought L.A. Stories, is I think the 1980s L.A.
Yeah,
version.
the new.
So,
I haven't seen that yet. I'm
yeah, so
excited
it's
to see
sitting on the
that.
shelf too. So,
You guys went all in.
we both went all in. Greg bought a whiteboard and easel so we can have like our police room,
Oh
we're
my
drawing
gosh.
lines and everything. He was way into it, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Next thing you're going to get the little corkboard with the pins and the
That's
strings.
the only thing we're missing,
Pins and the
right?
strings.
Right, and the bad pot of coffee in the corner. But yeah, so Kenners are usually not exactly my deal, and detective stuff is not my deal. But we clearly had fun with that one, and
Right.
part of it is just I think it's designed smoothly. It plays
Yeah.
smoothly. It takes a long. Okay, now Scott said this too. It takes a long time.
Right.
So in my younger days, that probably would have driven me crazy. But this time, it's like we're going to play this one game all night long. And sure enough, we played this one scenario. I'm sure other people could do it more quickly. We took probably
I don't
4
know.
hours going through the whole thing, and I thought that's just what we're going to do tonight, and it was cool.
I don't know that more quickly is good. So I read all the Encyclopedia Brown books when I was a kid, right? And I love those little 2-minute mysteries. And so when I got into board games, and certainly as I got older, the idea of a mystery board game, I think 221B Baker Street might have been my
Oh,
first
yeah.
one.
Right.
But I also got Consulting Detective, which I only recently, because I was looking it up, I didn't realize that guy was in San Francisco making that game.
Yeah, Sleuth
So
Publications,
I
yeah.
probably got a copy before anyone else, right? And those were not great. Mystery games are hard, and because they're either like 220 Baker Street, where the answer is sort of obvious, but it's just broken up into 10 pieces, right? And so all you're really doing is essentially finding 10 pieces of like a long sentence. I mean, I'm being
And racing to do it.
twist,
The other
yes.
Players, right?
Or they have to be dense and deep so that you have the mystery, like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which to me was too much. You know what I'm saying? And I think this does a good job of sort of finding the balance between the two. You don't need all the information. It's all kind of there. But I think these kind of games have a strike against them just because of that, right? I think it could be that the ideal mystery game is like an ideal mystery book, which is maybe it's a one-player game in a weird way. Like maybe the idea of trying to get a bunch of people to do stuff together is just tough for that format.
Does it handle?
Yeah, I was thinking you can play this one player,
that's what I
right?
figured, yeah.
I'm saying maybe
you should play it.
that is the best way to play it. I mean, it sucks because it's a co-op and you want to play with a bunch of people. And if you're all like-minded and you know what you're getting into, this is a good version of that, right? This sort of fills the Time Stories slot in a way this year,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And I think of that because Time Stories is a puzzle, not a mystery, but presented as a mystery, right? You're trying to figure out what's going on, but in this, that's sort of more like a video game format. Whereas this is trying to be like a detective novel. I think maybe the better mystery board games are the ones that are trying to be like the Infocom games or like Myst, right? Or like those sort of video game things. Well, I know what you're saying, but the point is, a mystery is in a way a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
But so yes,
Well,
for me, this is not going to be a game. I don't know if I would gravitate back to it again, but when we played it, I was very impressed by finding that balance between like not being too easy and not being too hard, and being sort of at the right density level, if that makes any sense. Now, at least the case we played.
Well, it felt, as you described that, it feels to me more like a cop show than a mystery
Yes.
novel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
And-
that's what we were doing.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get.
We were
I
Law
missed-
and
I
Ordering
missed
it
your
all
shit.
up.
They
Totally,
were.
yeah.
They were like, "Oh, she's the blah." You know, it was amazing.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
Law and Ordering it
Well,
all up.
okay, so besides that, I mean, for me, just speaking personally, personal preference, that's a better weight for me.
Yeah.
A 1 hour cop show rather than a 400-page mystery novel.
That makes sense.
Where are we going to now, Mark?
Yeah, Mark.
Me? Okay. All right, Carpe Diem's close. Let's talk about
Okay.
Carpe Diem. Steffenfeld, Alea, it's got sort of traditional Euro written all over it. It's the most traditional of these three by a wide margin, I think, right? And played it with Dave. I've only played it once. And I liked it. I sure didn't love it, though.
Right.
To me, it was just sort of... and I'm someone that's like, you can keep making Trading in the Mediterranean games with me. I'm okay with that stuff. Let's go to Florence or whatever.
Is that happening here? Is it really trading? I think this is not indicative of the game.
Here's why I can't. That's right. So the things that bore other people don't usually bore me. I'm okay with that. But this game still felt kind of flat for me. It just Stefan Feld isn't always my guy, but he doesn't do. And there were a variety of scoring categories, but they're all
it's
conventional.
not as point crazy as he can.
Maybe the scoring is the trading. You're trading those things in for.
I guess so, but it doesn't feel like a trading game at all.
No, it's
it didn't feel like its main thing was all the ways to make points. It felt like its main thing was the spatial play of the tiles, right? You're trying to draft tiles with this hard to not necessarily hard to visualize, but hard to look ahead.
Right. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
That was
So you kind of have. I think you have to play it kind of light. So we'll see what's around when it comes around to me again when I can play. And
You just said you people. I don't know.
I did. Nikki and I are going to kick you to the curb when it comes to that star system. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, in any case, so it all worked, but it all just was like, yeah, okay. That's my take on it.
All right, Nikki.
Start kicking to
Nikki,
the curb.
tell them what's what.
You're so wrong with I enjoyed this game, and I'm going to say it again. Tile Lane, so you know.
This is the only one since the only Tile Lane game.
Yeah,
It's like Nikki, all the rest she's ignoring.
I enjoyed the way that center
star system
was laid out. I've heard it's going to be changed, but to me it was not confusing at all. I could totally look ahead to what I needed to do. I could also look a move ahead if so and so takes this. I had no problem with that and seeing what I needed to do for a move. So that part was also neat and interesting looking. Because it wasn't just this line and then, no one chose it, so it bumps off, and that kind of system, which we've all seen before. So I enjoyed that whole rondel middle section. The player board in front of you, I didn't do it that well, but having already played through the game, I know what I would do differently.
Yeah, totally. Right.
So I was already looking forward to playing the game again, so I enjoyed it enough to want to play it again.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of the vertical and horizontal extra scoring, those boring.
Scoring.
Scoring.
Yeah.
I liked that. I didn't use it to the best of its ability. That's where, in my opinion, on my game, I didn't really. I was, I was focusing on making that building and making that fishing pond and stuff, and not necessarily putting in the correct positions. The funny thing about that is that the Dizzled has that same idea on the board. I mean, this is a piece of paper and Dizzled, but there are columns that you can
and rows
that you can complete that will get you more points. And I'm more familiar with seeing that in a roll and write situation versus a game like this where you're laying out your tile grid. So to me, that was an interesting let's put that into a tile laying game.
Yeah. Right.
Those were the things I found interesting about the game.
Lincoln?
Well, I think we should take a moment of silence because this is the end of the run for the Olea games.
Really?
You will not be seeing this anymore.
18.
I believe 18 is it because they're starting anew with a completely different look and a new numbering system. And some of the games will be coming back to that system. Castle Burgundy is already one of them. I think it'll be number 2.
So the crazy collectors will have to buy them again.
Again, yes. So I know that Dave was one of those people that has everything.
Not crazy. I just enjoyed collecting.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, but it is the end of that, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why they couldn't just rejigger it, and continue, but who knows. This is a fun game. I do enjoy it. I think that Dave will talk about something where he had said something, how we played it, and maybe should have pointed out something to us.
Yeah.
Although I don't feel that was such a big deal. Again, because it's a learning game, and I have no problem learning a game. only if we just really screwed it up for some reason.
Right.
And I still wouldn't blame the person teaching me because some things happens. But I think the game is cool. It has enough of the old school type of Alea aspect to it. It feels more like not as good a version of like Notre Dame, because I really like Notre Dame, and I think Year of the Dragon's pretty great too. But it feels like it's part of that. You can feel the lineage, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun to play. I really feel it's hampered by its art direction. It's real sad because like the cover is one of the best. I know this is boring and it doesn't match, but it's one of the most nicely rendered covers in a long time from the Alea line. I'm not a huge fan of the sketchy look. It's fine occasionally, but I feel it's kind of a crutch. It feels like it's half done, right? Inside the box is terrible. The greenbacks are, unless you're in the best of lighting, the colors are too similar. There's too many similar.
Yeah, GameNight is the ideal lighting situation.
Right. We definitely. When I played it here, I'm like, oh, all my complaints are not nearly as bad. But I don't feel.
But that's because we have professional.
Yeah,
we have lots of
sitting
lighting.
under.
I don't feel. It's a weird deal, and it's too bad because it hurt the game a little bit. But at least it's got its nomination, and I don't mind the star system. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But I think that supposedly what it does is it goes left and right. So you just pick which direction you go. And it essentially works out to the same situation with the other stuff.
I didn't hate it. I just thought it was designed on purpose so that it was not the sort of thing where you can.
It's whimsical.
Whimsical.
There's something fun about bouncing back and forth and going to the sides and then just going in a circle. But I understand some people didn't like that they didn't have the spatial to sort of see ahead a move or two.
I boned it a couple times where I'm like, oh, I can't get there. What am I thinking?
And if you unfold the star, it is a circle, right? I mean, it'd be one thing if it were its own unique thing that didn't work the same way, but if it works the same way as a circle, I can see why they would change it to that. Were you done?
Yeah, I did.
Rusty. Mark, back to Mark.
Rusty. My play of this, I enjoyed it very much. It felt like the strongest out of the games where I could make decisions. I knew what I was needing to do. It felt the roughest, the most harsh as far as scoring as well.
Yeah.
The scoring at the end of the round, the first round is it's impossible. And not impossible, but it's very difficult. And when you've only got a few tiles from the first round and you're
7.
It's just those few tiles to try to build something to match 2 items for scoring. It seems really rough and very hard to plan ahead for a full game, and therefore you're changing tack in the second round. And I mean I like that, but I also think it's a little hard for people who aren't used to a heavier game like that. In the game that I was in, it went about 4 hours.
Oh my goodness.
What?
Yeah, but we were all teaching. I picked up the rules, read and taught right from there.
Listen, when Castles of Burgundy came out, all those first-time games when I saw people playing it were 3 to 4 hours.
Yes.
Crazy, right?
Absolutely. And when we played it on the show, it was a completely different experience. It will be something I will try again. I will definitely play this again, but I know that it's definitely in the Kenner category.
Yeah.
I think it feels that. Again, my only complaints would probably be the same as Lincoln's in that the imagery was difficult in the copy that I had with the greens, and then the
gold and the brown.
The gold and the brown.
Yeah. Too close. You think it's weird too. Like you look at it, and go, oh, and then you put it there. Oh my God, that's the wrong one. It's terrible. We let people take that stuff back just because you can't.
Yeah, of course.
Sure. My answer to that is that, the artist is going along doing their thing, and that's where an art director comes in, and it needed to be an art director that knows games too and plays games and can see that, because you can get as an artist very lost in the beauty of it and the balance and the all the little things that artists pay attention to that makes something a beautiful art piece but not necessarily a playable game.
Right.
Well, also, if I remember correctly, right, the buildings are all the same shape, right? Isn't each half of the thing
roughly? Yeah, there's some.
If the buildings
defining,
were, like if the brown was different shaped from than the gold, then you wouldn't also have that problem because the halves wouldn't match up.
Because this is the designer's first game, or the artist's first game that they've ever done.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I believe she's a manga artist and stuff. So I mean, it looks really good. It just needed a little bit more help, and it's too bad because that was everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's muddy, and that was the first thing I heard about this game was everybody was going to town on it.
True.
Yeah,
and great, it's the artist's first game, but it's Alea and Ravensburger's not their first game.
Yeah, that's where
exactly.
It's 18.
Yeah.
It's number 18. So the thing,
More than 18.
I'm sitting here, I have this one comment in my mind locked and loaded. I'm like, I'm going to say this thing, and no one's going to mention this. It's going to be great. And then you mentioned it. I was going to bring up In the Year of the Dragon, of all things. And I didn't think anyone would mention it. There's a similarity to me between this and The Year of the Dragon in that, and you also brought this up, which I figured, is that the first play of that game is just harsh. There's a harshness to it. That scoring system in this, and this is what you were also referring to, which is, I learned that in the future, if I ever teach this game, that after mentioning it in the rules, before we then start, I would reiterate, hey, you have exactly 7 tiles to make this first scoring round.
Right.
So
and it also depends
pay
what comes
attention.
out, so you may not even be able to make it.
So pay attention. That is also correct. The mix of the cards is such that sometimes those cards are easier to make in 7 tiles and sometimes they're not.
So I benefited from, I was in the game where you had
taught
that
you
realization.
I taught you that
And
way.
you made a huge point of that to
Yeah.
us. And I'm sure that made a huge difference from our first game being a fine game, a good game, rather than a throwaway learning
Because
game.
I know a lot of people had that similar experience with In the Year of the Dragon. It's a game that can be very harsh because it's a game about everything just completely being ruined and falling apart on you, right?
Yeah.
And until you're prepared for that, and in some cases give into it, and like it actually might be good strategy in that game to not try to protect your stuff and to kind of let it disappear. But you don't get that the first time. And I think the slight knock against the game, not for me, I really like this one a lot, but I think part of the reason I like it is I played it more than you.
Right.
I think this is one of those games that you do need to play it at least a
times.
second
Yeah,
or third
of
time.
course.
Well, some games you get them right away, and some games you want to play them again.
Well-
and you find maybe extra depth, but I think I understand why people might play that Carpe Diem the first time and go, I don't like that. I didn't like that.
You may have felt that you'd failed us and didn't tell us that you didn't reiterate it.
Right.
But here's the deal. Nobody at that table disliked this game. So it didn't hurt it.
Well, that's a plus then, right?
Right.
That's
yeah,
saying
it's,
something.
Again, it's if you're in the mindset that it's a learning game, which it was because I actually did play this game once before, completely with the wrong rules. It was like number one, the person teaching us the rules wasn't there the whole time, and then I had a time pressure on top of that. So I basically played the game in 45 minutes. Where because I played at the same with BGG Con Spring, Rusty played a 4-hour game, I played a 45-minute game, and I said to the guys, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, you're taking too much time, but we got to go because I have to leave unless you want to play with 2, right? And so we raced through it, and there were so many things we got wrong. So we, being taught the game correctly, also helped the game more for me, and I literally didn't absorb that much because we were going so fast. It was a first play for me, and that was fine because like we understood the goals more accurately, and
but I like
we didn't know that you could bounce. That was one of the biggest kicks in the pants.
Oh my gosh.
So if you hit nothing, you hit nothing, right?
Right.
And that's
Wait, and then just didn't get a tile?
absolutely. Now it worked out. Nobody because of the sparseness.
That's so weird.
It still worked out that we maybe somebody got one more tile than others or something like that. But it was weird.
That
yeah,
is
it was really
very
weird.
strange.
Well, we didn't have anybody. We were playing it
Sure.
quickly. We weren't looking it up. We thought we were being taught by a jury member who was not on that jury, but we got it a little bit wrong.
But I really liked Carpe Diem. It you mentioned it as well, right? It felt like an old school Alea, not just an old school Euro game, but it felt kind of like an old school Alea. I mean, Stefan Feld has been their guy for the longest time, right? I mean, once he came in with Ron Pirates, was that his first one, I
Yes.
guess? And then
Oh,
did the
really?
next 5 or 4?
I think he's done
He did
everything, hasn't he?
He did In the Year of the Dragon. That
He
was
did,
it.
and he did.
Oh, yeah,
Notre
you're right.
Dame,
No, that
and
was
he
the-
did Burgundy, and he did Macau, and he did Bora Bora.
and
and
Notre
he
Dame,
did-
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he
Yeah.
might have done everything. There must be one game they did recently that he didn't do.
I don't know.
I can't even think of it.
Been a long time.
People at home are screaming at us right now.
Oh, Broom Service.
Right. That was in there. I thought, as I said, I like this one a lot. It's the kind of old style game that I don't know that I would have sort of gotten into, but it is partly the tiling thing that sort of makes it interesting. It was a nice balance. You know, a lot of people throw point salad, right, is what a lot of people say about
About
here's
stuff,
another game
yeah.
point salad, but this didn't feel like that to
No.
me.
No.
Everything
all.
felt like it kind of interlocked and and meshed really well. I'm going to move on to Wingspan, and I'm going to start. So, Wingspan to me is really cool, and it's in this weird new class of game that there have been a bunch of, I feel, lately, which is it's the kind of game that's sort of like you have your own little puzzle board, you do your own thing, and there's little to no player interaction, and that was my only real knock against Wingspan.
Other than the food I kept giving you.
Other than the food you kept giving me. But the food is the only real sort of major interaction in that someone can take the thing that you want, but they're usually just taking it not because they're taking it from you, it's just the thing they wanted.
Right.
And maybe you race to try to draw a certain card from the array, but other than that, we played the friendly side of the bonus board, so in that regard there was also no like best to do this, but I don't even necessarily think if you played that side of the board you would focus that strongly on trying to beat someone. Maybe you would, I just don't know. If it doesn't fit with the engine you're building, but it's gorgeous, it's a very cool theme, the puzzle part is great. Are the cards balanced? I don't know. I don't know that I care right now. Those are my thoughts on Wingspan. Lincoln.
I really like the game. It's probably my favorite one of the three. I don't know where it lies ultimately because I feel there's a lot of cool things that each one of them offers. This is the most anomalous in that it's the most. It really kind of is simple. It is probably the truest to the Kenner aspect, where it's a step above. I don't know how this. I've talked about it with people. This has a lot of Terraforming Mars in it, right? For me, it's not the same, but it has similar things with the interactions. I know Nikki's going to say this and she's going to be mad at me, but the going over once you've played your thing and then moving the piece down the board to activate those cards is awesome. I mean, it is one of the coolest elements of the game.
Agreed.
And it really is so much cool stuff going on in that regard.
You know what? I never thought about it, but it's kind of the same thing as going on in Gizmos, right? Where where you sort of build cards, and then when you put a new card, you get to do that whole row.
The only issue for me, which again, it's another discussion about like production, everything is too tiny. Those cards have lots of real estate on them. There's no reason for icons to be that are important to the game to be that small. Right. They should be big, and I don't understand how nobody's figuring that out in games. We keep running into this problem with games. Rusty brought up one. What was the one you brought up earlier?
That was Everdell.
Yeah, Everdell, which we love.
Yeah.
It's a great game as well. And you've got some tiny little bit of verbiage that you kind of need to read and some icon that you have to see. And it's
maybe that
annoying.
feeds into the player interaction thing, right? Because
have other people read them to you?
No, I'm saying because to me there is no player interaction, there's no need for someone to go, do I need to worry about someone from the other side of the table being able to see what this card does?
No.
Like, it didn't matter to me what your cards did in Wingspan. And it's good that it didn't matter because I wouldn't be able to read them anyway.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that,
Is
by
intentional?
mistake, not intentional, I wonder if that sort of subconsciously factors into the card design. No? Nikki
disagree.
Nikki says no.
It's about the card looks pretty that way, but it's not functional that way.
Yeah.
That's what it totally, to me.
I think she's right.
Yeah, oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's a fun game, and there's a lot of play. I mean, both Nikki and I want to play it. We both want to play it immediately.
Right.
I think it has a lot of replayability. That's the discussion lately. That do games even need it? Since we all play games mostly once,
right?
Which is kind of a drag, but I don't know. Maybe it's true.
Nikki.
I enjoyed Wingspan. It's funny that you were really into the no player interaction because that's usually something I latch onto and get kind of annoyed with, but it did not bother me in this game at all.
Right.
Because of the taking of the dice, because of the cards, the 3 cards that were face up that we could all
the draft.
Choose from, yeah.
There were plenty of times where I was working up to that card and someone took from me, or they rolled the dice and what I wanted was already there. So I thought there was some player action, but there certainly wasn't a lot of player interaction.
Right.
I liked the game. I liked the game a lot. I liked, like you said, as Gizmos, that kind of snowball effect with getting the right cards down. and being able to run through them and have them all pay off in one go while you're going down
Right.
the row, which you said. I had fun just with the eggs and stuff, and like this bird is the pink eggs, and this bird is. I mean, it's stupid, right?
Yeah.
I made my own dumb thing out of it, but I liked doing that.
Right.
I liked the limited, tracking what you were doing with cubes.
Well, and they kept
and
getting
all
less
that kind
each
of
round was
stuff.
less, so it was even tighter and
that
tighter.
was-
And it
each round.
was, you had more to do and less actions to do them in, which was really fun. So watching that kind of the growth of what you could do and
the amount of,
of
that
actions
can
you
do,
had was
yeah.
shrinking.
Right.
I enjoyed the game a lot.
Okay, Mr. Theme Gamer, did your brain
yeah.
explode with delight on this one?
Oh yeah.
I thought of you when I.
Oh my
first
gosh,
saw it.
yeah. So, but there's a little story behind it because there was like a pre-order thing for this, and it's, I don't know, overproduced. People use that term, right?
Right.
Stonemaier has it all. So those things worked against me. Pre-order, I don't know. Let's just wait and see on this.
Right.
So I'm one of the people who got sort of burned on the wait and see approach. And then the production, even though it's wonderful, that almost, in a sense, can almost be a little bit of a turnoff. It's like, is this all flash? Is there any state to go with this sizzle? You know, that sort of thing. But the theme, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I like bio themes, evolutionary themes in general. And, you know, my brother's an ornithologist, my dad and my grandpa are all, you know, avid bird
watchers,
people.
yeah.
Like, I mean, we got
Really?
bird stuff
Wow.
in my blood, right?
Right.
So then I finally played it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is as good as I was hoping it was going to be. Really? I mean, it is kind of multiplayer solitaire. I don't have any problem with any game like that. I'm okay with that. I'm doing my thing, you're doing your
Right.
thing.
Right.
The times I've played, I guessed we've been using the competitive side of the scoring
Right.
board. So that was definitely made me look at what everyone else was doing. And I liked that part too. It's like when you saw that, we also looked at the initial hand of cards, birds, and tried to figure out what's going to set me up for this. And then as we play, I'm absolutely looking across at Nikki or Rusty, you know, and saying like, oh, we're going to tie there, we're going to do this. And so,
You've got good eyes, sir.
well, I don't know.
Those bonuses are not hard to see because they don't involve the text on the
Well, the
card.
There's a
bonus
few.
is
You and I
cool.
were going for the same thing in our game.
I mean, I couldn't see-
I never saw none of
I
those
think we
cards.
just talked about it, right? So if we see that you need to have, you know, nests in the marsh or whatever the heck it is, we just say like, who's got how many of those, right? We could just say that. It wasn't like, but then we were absolutely in competition. So I'm looking at the player cost that
Right.
like, maybe they're going to draft that bird before I do. So that was cool. I think the comparison to Gizmos makes sense because it's an engine builder, you know.
What's cool, I just realized, is what makes this a Kennerspiel is that in Gizmos, when you activate a bunch of cards, you can fire them in any order. And in Wingspan, you are locked into the going down the line order,
Right.
which makes it harder, right?
Well,
If some cards
harder to
if
plan,
right?
but easier to execute. I mean,
Yeah.
it was real smooth.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
totally.
the production that I sort of, you know, had this weird sort of anti-reaction to ended up being great because, okay, the little feeder thing, few
Oh, the
things
die
are-
thing? I
yeah,
thought that was fun, though.
They're a little excessive, maybe. You know,
Yeah.
this is my thing, but you know, it all works. And the bird cards, yes, the icons are too small and the text is small, absolutely true, but they're gorgeous. They are really gorgeous.
Absolutely. The art is ridiculous.
They are
Yeah.
gorgeous, and insofar as theme, I mean, which birds do things like move from terrain type to terrain type, whatever, it makes thematic sense too. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this thing did everything I was hoping for.
So you knew that the eggs themselves, right, were all the actual colors of the birds in the game. So the range
pulled
of
my
colors
leg
of
there,
the
isn't it?
eggs are the colors of the eggs that the birds would actually
Is that
lay.
true, or you
Yeah.
just pulled my leg
I am
down?
not pulling
Okay,
your leg.
all right. Well, there's no speckled ones or anything.
Yeah, yeah, that- we have to
could
do
be an
that on our own.
expansion,
I
right?
wanted to speckle.
Yeah,
it.
right. but engine builders can sometimes be a little more than I want in a game. And I did say after I played, it's like if this had been about some science fiction, you know, you mentioned Terraforming Mars, right? And Terraforming
Right.
Mars was a game that I liked, and I'm, you know, space, blah blah blah. But
But that brought too much of your career into
Is
that.
that a new shirt? That's a shirt you're going to wear to work now.
space, blah blah
Spend
blah.
blah.
But there are lots of other themes. If you have that much game behind it, it's like, eh. And I don't play Terraforming Mars that much because it's just too much. Whereas this one it's less than Terraforming Mars for me, less in a good way, and it plays pretty
I don't
simple.
feel it's the same. I just feel it has elements
There's a
of
connection,
that.
right? And had it been about a theme that I wasn't as wild about, I probably would have thought, it's probably a little, not as much as Terraforming Mars, but more game than I really need. But the theme was so great, and I mean, yes, it really resonated with me, but it's unique, and unique themes are kind of fun too, right?
100%. Rusty?
I enjoyed it. Partly a little more, like you were saying, because of the theme. It was not something I was expecting to enjoy. I liked how it all incorporated, how all the action seemed to make sense to everything, to the types of birds, to the types of areas. People were mentioning the lack of interaction, and I found that people. Well, I've heard this outside of the discussion here as well, but I found that in the game that I played, which was a 5-player game, so it went long, and I had plenty of time to plan out my turn. There were enough people that had cards that interacted with other players' actions that we were having to focus on that. You're getting to place a food on that bird every turn I do this, or you get an egg every turn I do this. It became something I was like, okay, we're giving them a benefit. We need to really make sure whether that's something we want to do. And it did start to affect the score enough because it started early enough in the game.
Right.
And so that I didn't feel it was pure solitaire. I did feel that connection a bit. Yeah. Now, again, I did have difficulty reading the cards in the display as to what was up, and I would have to sit there and that.
Because of all the gray hairs here.
Yeah, the gray hairs. But once the cards were on my display, I could play the game and get through my turn reasonably quickly, and it just seemed like the only delay was the number of people that I had. And I would probably see that I would enjoy it a little more with a lower player count, but I didn't see much that could knock the game for me, other than not knowing the cards. But play it a couple of times and you get to learn the cards as well.
Well, one of the things, and I don't know if it's the designer Elizabeth Hargrave's thing or it's Jamie Stegmaier. One of the coolest things about this game, which doesn't necessarily answer all your questions as a start player, but most of the time you play a game and you're like, how does this affect me? You're looking at these things, you're making decisions that you don't know the game at all, and it gives you percentages of how much that appears in the game, which is insanely fantastic. Now, you may not see all those cards, but I still love, this is in the game 7% of the time, right? Should I bother with this one?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that was fantastic, and it is one of the really cool elements of the game that is. Even though I have a beef about legibility and stuff like that, it's still got a lot of neat stuff going on.
That is an excellent point. Those percentages were really, really cool.
You're like, oh, okay, well, this one's better, but and I'm looking at what we have visible to us and stuff like that, which is, But of course, I don't know what anybody else is doing, which is cool. I like that. The secret goals.
No one's mentioned balance in Wingspan yet.
Well, he did.
Did you?
Yeah, and I know
remember,
that Scott...
I've only played it once, so I don't know.
I mean,
in a game
Scott
like this that has a
issues
bunch of
about it,
different
too.
cards, there's always that chance of how could you have possibly played enough combinations to know if they're balanced
Dave had
or
an
not?
amazing combo in our game because he was able to easily get more cards, and then he was, his thing was putting the cards
But your
underneath
score
cards.
was relatively tight, I thought.
It
right?
was still
It was
7 or
because
8.
to get that combo, I scored badly in 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I scored okay in 1, badly in 2 and 3, and then I came on like wildfire in 4.
So I only mention because I had the same reaction. When you play this game, it's like, how can this possibly be balanced? Some of these things are quite strong compared to others, and they cost more, but I've had limited plays of it too, but it has all sort of played out okay.
Right.
So it seems weird that it's balanced. See, I don't think it's luck. But
I'm not even
just
saying it's not balanced. I'm saying I just don't know.
Yeah.
In a game that has so many cards, right? I mean, since we keep mentioning Terraforming Mars, the thing that in theory balances Terraforming Mars is that once you play it for real, the real way, you are all drafting. You're drafting all your cards from the beginning, right?
Yeah, and there's a mini sort of draft at the beginning of Wingspan, but
not a pass around the table.
But even in a
draft.
couple plays of Terraforming Mars, I could feel like, oh, that's why you have to do this because there's swingier things. I didn't feel that issue.
You can be completely right.
Yeah.
It's not an informed opinion.
The other thing about Wingspan that when we played it is that it took a while for people to see that it starts slow. I mean, you build an engine, maybe a lot of engine builders like this, but that first turn it feels like you're not doing much of anything.
Absolutely.
And
you have
then,
more. You have more things you can do, but
Right.
That's the killer thing about this game. That's what's awesome about stepping down your available actions, because
Otherwise,
it
it would
becomes
get-
more and more powerful, right? As you're doing, you've got your engine built up. I
had-
kept finding myself. I just want one more thing
Yeah.
to do this right
Yeah.
now. I need it. You know.
We had to explain to new players, like, hang on, get into turn. There's only 4 turns, right, in the whole thing, right?
Rounds.
4 rounds,
Four
yeah.
big rounds, right?
Yeah.
That just get through that first round and it'll start.
I think the game,
Yeah.
it's funny you say that, because I think the game almost is self-explanatory in that regard, because your first round is like build a bird, build a bird, build a bird, build a bird, for the most part, right? And it's like, if you see that everyone does that in the first round, you realize, oh, okay, this is what has to happen at
Build a
first.
bird.
Build a bird. Build a bird.
Build a bird, yeah, build. I can't get out of the gamer thing. Well, what would it be?
Place a bird.
Place a bird in
Identify
its
a bird.
nest.
You identify the bird.
There you go.
Identify a bird in
Identify,
its
there you go.
correct landscape
whatever,
area. Whatever.
There you go.
All right, before we get
Well,
into
that's one thing about this game that is probably better than the appeal of what is going on graphically and artistic wise. It is the most appealing game of the bunch. Like, it's
Of this-
insanely
of
how
this-
much
Right.
how good it is, and how, I mean, it has, you talked about, you're saying where it would you waiting to pre-order it was a mistake. Well, it exploded. It was in
Yeah.
media. It was in mainstream
Yeah.
media, that people were talking about this game. And that is amazing, right? That does
Yeah.
not happen.
Right.
So and you're going to see this in museum stores and stuff like that forever. I mean,
Right.
as long as they can keep printing this one, I think this one's going to be around. I hope that people can get into it. It is deeper game.
It's fairly heavy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
talked about ambassadors over here. This could.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
makes
you're not going
sense
to
as-
bring this home to your bird-loving family.
Well, right. I mean, my initial thought was, I'll order this for my brother, and I thought, well, slow up. Like, maybe he'll come over to my house and I'll teach
Teach
it to
him,
him.
yeah.
That's.
I don't
more-
know. I think they could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the reason that they might be able to do it, even though it's denser than maybe a non-gamer game, is that it is ultimately kind of solitary in that
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about trying to figure out other players. They can just focus on their thing. And I think that's a little easier to do, right? The hardest sort of gamer aspect, I think, that non-gamers have a problem with is that kind of deep look ahead and confrontation, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but the interaction that you often have to have with other players. That idea of where you have to predict, well, what's Mark going to do in this move? And if he does that, what will Nikki do? And I think he'll do that and she'll do this, so this is my best move. Right? I think those are the decisions that gamers potentially enjoy and that non-gamers don't even like. Right?
So.
That's my feeling.
Right.
Anyone else? Final thoughts before we do some predictions.
Well, okay.
All right, let's get the cliche thing out of the way. Oh, they're all so good. Every game's great
Yeah,
this
yeah,
year.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
why they
yeah.
could all win and
Yeah.
be great. Okay, here we go.
Cliche, but there's truth.
No, that's
Yeah.
why cliche is true. That's why it's true. It repeats because it's true. That's the terriblest sentence ever.
Okay. Terriblest on top of it.
Terriblest,
Wow, you're
Steven.
doubling down on
It's
that.
thematic. It's thematic. All right, we'll start over here in the Kennerspiel.
Okay.
All right, so first you're going to vote for the game that you would like to win.
Mm-hmm.
This is the game that if you were on the jury, this would be the one you would want to pick and have win. We're going to count down 3, 2, 1, point. You guys ready?
Yep.
I'm
All right,
ready.
here we go. 3, 2, 1, point. All right, 3 for Wingspan and 2 for Carpe Diem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is the one you want because...
It has more to it.
Right.
I like this game a lot, but I think this one has more to it. I mean, believe me, because I'm torn on this one.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of them. Again, you
Yeah.
told me not to go into that, but it is. They're all have something to offer. I know you're being facetious,
I was.
but it has so much depth and ease. Right, that is
Yeah.
the difference. This is the easiest of the bunch for sure, as far as to sit down and you can have. It is the next. This is if you're going by the truest sense of what the Kennerspiel is,
The next
this is
step.
the next level from
maybe.
an SDJ.
I
Because
would
to
agree.
me, it is just above. If you compare some of the previous SDJs, Azul being one of them, that actually has some complexity to it. That
It does.
is that this almost reaches that level. This one is pretty darn complex, and this one's crazy just because it's so
a
deep.
different thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's super deep. I think that game's fantastic.
Yeah, and you pick Carpe Diem.
It's going to sound strange, but it comes down to reading.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
You don't
really?
have
It
to
comes
read
down to
anything.
reading. I think between the two, I personally prefer the gameplay style from Carpe Diem just due to the lack of reading.
Yeah, it has language independent components for sure.
Having to read all the cards
Yeah,
on Wingspan.
it's a really hard decision. I mean,
Yeah.
even when voting, but it came down to again reading.
Yeah, I agree with you. That actually helps the game. It helps this game a lot. You know.
All right. Now we're going to vote for the game that we
This
think
always
will.
so-
Yeah,
Right.
this is the hard part. This truly, I haven't.
It's
Getting
funny
my
because
mind into the jury sense is tough.
this to me is one of the easier choices I've ever had to do on one of these shows. Now, it
Really?
doesn't mean I'm right. Yes, I think one of these games is kind of a lock.
Can I
Wow.
pick two?
Yes, you can pick two.
Yeah.
And by two, I mean one from this and then one from over here when we get there.
Dang it. Ugh, this is hard. Jury.
Yep.
I think
Yeah, I haven't
I'm
really-
way off.
You guys
I'm just
ready?
I'm going random. I don't know where my fingers going to go.
Yeah, I don't know either. I really want to. I want to try
I
to
like
get
it.
myself in the.
Just roll a D. Would it be a D5? Is your
well,
favorite
I will
D5?
first say before we jump into this.
Yeah.
Mike picked the one that he liked was Carpe Diem.
Yeah.
And Scott felt the one he liked was Carpe Diem. So there's some weight there that was their favorite. That's not the ones that either of them picked as the winner, but yeah. I don't know. I'm afraid to choose here. I mean, I know our reputation's on the line, but it's
Yeah.
Yeah, your big
well,
time reputation.
only because you guys talk about this
It's reported.
spreadsheet and
The
people keep
spreadsheet.
asking
It was
about
in
it.
the LA Times this morning.
The
Yeah.
spreadsheet. Okay.
Let me think for a moment.
Man,
I'm sorry. I'm going to make
Okay.
it so that you guys start to
No.
reconsider yourselves. Here.
I'm going to have something to say.
Okay. Then we're going to you right after the vote.
Okay.
Ready?
Three.
3, 2, 1, vote.
Whoa.
Wow. Wow. All right, well, we'll get to you in a second because I promised Nikki. What do you have to say?
Okay. So I think the jury.
Well, what was the picks there? We didn't.
Oh, sorry. 4 for
Wingspan.
Wingspan and 1 for Detective.
Yeah.
I think the jury will go with this one because it's pretty and it has a nice package and it doesn't require an app. I think that the
Well, this
jury.
doesn't require an app. Maybe.
Well, the
Yep.
website. I think they're trying to get younger people interested in board gaming. So it would be between these two for that reason and that reason alone. Not because the gameplay is any better than this one, but because it's a new look and a new idea of board gaming. And I think that they would shy away from this one simply because you have to use
That website,
a website. But as far as appealing to a young crowd, though, they should pick this one. But I think they'll do that one.
All right, Outlier. The detective, you're the only one that picked
I
Detective.
said it was random voting. I had no
Right.
idea.
Do you
on.
really feel that way?
Well, it was incredibly hard for me because I see a conventional pick over here.
Right.
I see like the opposite of a conventional pick. I mean, the gameplay's pretty familiar, I suppose, to Wingspan, but just the I don't know how these things work in distribution, but the American original producer, and it just seems like an odd pick to me. Maybe that's an comment we made a few years
have
ago and not
said
anymore.
The jury, the makeup of the jury has changed.
Yeah.
Right. I truly feel this is an up in the air about the choice on this. I don't. I kind of theoretically have been honing in on what the jury would pick. If you look at my selections, I don't think I got it right. I picked The Mind out of my love for the game, but it was
Right.
it was
Sometimes that's where your
that's.
pick
I mean,
just
again,
comes
I
from.
basically think that's what has happened here.
I really feel like this is a lock. I
Really?
feel
Yeah.
Well-
I think it's just it's the right balance. It's what you said. It's got kind of some old school gameplay, so it's not too crazy weird, but it's different. And it's just gorgeous. It's
Yeah,
it is all those
it's the
things.
way you pick the Kinderspiels.
Yeah,
I think
is gonna
this
look
has
fantastic.
that Kinderspiel thing.
This one's going to
Yeah.
look fantastic on the shelf with the popple on it right there, man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
You're right. I prefer Carpe Diem, but it just looks like yet another standard Euro game.
Yeah,
and it doesn't.
I kinda
you don't
felt like-
see people playing it and go, "Oh, I want to play that."
Right.
Well,
When you
you're not alone because Mike picked this as the
Did he?
the
Oh,
jury,
did he?
and then Scott picked this as with the rest of us.
for the
Basically,
prediction, right?
Did Mike say anything about why he picked Detective?
well, as I said, he picked Carpe Diem for himself, and
Right.
he picked us as the jury. He did not say.
I mean, they picked Exit. Exit was Kenner,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was
Kenner. It was
Yeah, a
Kenner,
few years
yeah.
ago, and I mean, it seems like it could be a pick.
Well, Dave
for-
had a deep thing about this where things won't get it because. Are you going to talk about that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
You're saying that until that kind of game wins,
yes.
yeah, you should bring this
So,
up.
so this is that. I said Time Stories earlier, and this does seem to fill that
Okay.
same slot to me, which is why I don't think it can win. I feel like, but this is the problem. This is
I
the
know.
problem with
Did
that
Time
thinking
Stories
is
win?
Listen to
no.
Okay.
Time Stories did not win.
Yeah.
It would have been my pick.
It was the Andreas Pelikan and Alexander Pfister.
that broom
Room
service.
Service.
Yeah.
No. That year was
Isle of Skye.
Isle
Isle
of
of
Skye.
Skye.
Yeah.
A
Took
game
me a while
that
to spit
has
that
anyone
out.
here played that since?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Rusty's a weirdo. He likes Alexander Fisher. I love Alexander Fisher.
played
Don't get me
Oscar?
wrong, but
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And you like it, right?
Yes, I enjoy it.
I feel like that until something breaks through to be the new norm, it doesn't get picked. So,
Hanabi.
in other words, there was that whole idea that like a little small box card
Right.
game couldn't win Spiel des Jahres, and part of what was based on that wasn't just because it's a teeny little box, but because Bonanza didn't win.
Right.
If
Going
any
way
s-
back.
If I'm saying if any small box card game is going to win, it would be Bonanza because that game is amazing. But when that doesn't win, you think, okay, well these small card boxes just can't win,
And then?
they're rarely nominated. Right, and then, well, Hanabi winning, I
Right.
think, broke that mold.
Right.
And now you think, oh, okay, that's why I felt, along with you did, that the Mind had a chance to win.
Right.
Because Hanabi. Not because the Mind, but because Hanabi. And to me, this is that same thing. Like, if Time Stories didn't win, and games like that, then this falls into that sort of category for me, right? Cooperative, sort of mystery solving.
Well, that's what I think Exit is. I mean, Exit's
but-
different.
Exit is...
Exit's more like this than either of these.
But in addition to...
It's really more like this.
Yes. In
Yeah.
addition to Exit, sort of maybe needing to be on
I've
this
just
side of the
blown a hole in your whole
table.
theory over here.
Exit also, I think, had a price point thing going for it,
For sure.
and also capitalizing on the escape room
The
craze at
wave,
the
yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That conversation was great, and it was enlightening to me because I feel there's some truth to that. I feel this is the game to choose if you think that the jury will not make the leap to this,
Right.
Because this is beyond, I think, a Kenner game that I've seen win. That doesn't mean that some other more deeper games, because I don't know, it's a weird deal.
This is the safe pick. Right?
Exactly.
Safe,
Right.
boring, traditional, whatever you want to call
Well, look, this is better than, in my opinion, than Heaven and Ale, but like Heaven and Ale didn't win, and that was that year the more traditional pick, right?
it. Yeah.
Well, is it? It's the more traditional nominee. I don't know that it's the traditional pick.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I meant by
Yeah.
nominee.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I love Wingspan so much. It just feels like a little bit of an oddball predict. Although you guys all homed in on it, so I just thought I don't want to go conventional. That seems like it's got some sort of zeitgeist thing going on. So
It's true.
Maybe.
All right. Anyone have anything else to add before we
I mean,
move?
this came out last year for us, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it's new in Germany. Obviously, it got nominated, which is cool. I mean, it might be the buzz, right? It's just weird. There's other games. There's the adventure games that Phil Walker Harding and Matt Dunstan did that are coming out from Cosmos, and they're finally coming in English.
Okay.
Although I don't, those were out in Germany, I think, so they should have been available potentially to get nominated because it's an adventure game. I mean, it's really awesome.
Moving over to Werewolves, Llama, and Just One
For the award that matters.
for the award that
Well,
matters.
Spiel des Jahres is
Yeah.
tremendously more important than Kenner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the industry
This is
goes.
gonna be
Yeah.
tough.
All right. So
Again, all three of these, all six of these games, really hard to pick this
Yeah.
year. Really hard to pick.
Okay.
all right. So we're voting for
What we
Pay
pick
first.
first.
what would be our pick
Right.
if we were doing it? Everybody
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Hey!
Wow.
Should we just leave our fingers here?
Yeah.
For the next one?
I don't know. So what did we all
Well,
pick?
we all picked just one.
Okay, we know that Mike picked that as his favorite,
Just one?
and I believe Scott picked that as his favorite.
Just
Oh
one.
wow. Okay.
So that's all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
never happened before, I don't think.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
All of us picked that one.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have Aaron, the
Aaron.
contrarian, in the group, but but I think he picked that one too.
Well, maybe Werewords for Aaron, but I think he would pick Just One.
I think Just One is a fantastic game. It
I
really
agree.
is a powerful, fun game. It is the light. I mean, I keep saying the lightest because Llama's light, But it is the most
again
like
is it?
But my pick of the Mind last year is my most joyful game, probably gaming experience ever. Just One is very close to that. It has some really, and the fact that it's a co-op, I think there's a lot to be said for co-ops. As far as bringing groups together.
Yeah, getting people to.
Wow, is that game? Really strong, really strong. It has a very good chance to win, in my opinion, for how strong it is.
And was it Mark? Did you say I never even thought about it, but it was such a good point that it's not just a co-op, but it's a co-op where there's no pressure on like weak linkism, right?
No, yeah, I don't know if but right.
Someone said
co-ops,
that, I thought,
can struggle with an alpha player problem or a whatever the opposite of that is.
Right.
Where you feel like you're the one bringing everybody down.
Yeah,
as
or
well.
whatever.
And it's not that kind of
immune
game.
to that, right?
It's not that kind of game. You just have to know when you go in. Just ignore Rusty's clue.
You're not wrong.
I thought Hanabi was like that too, as it was kind of immune to that. But Hanabi, as much as I love it, is pretty intense. It's not for everybody. Whereas this, man,
and it won too, which we were all saying that year. I think it was just the four of us. It was the very beginning, but we were like, I think it was our first year of doing the SDJ stuff. We said we really want this to win, but we don't think it will win.
No, and so it was exciting to be wrong. Then, right.
And then now for me, Llama is actually my most played game of these, but it's not my favorite.
You guys are struggling with
half of it is me still trying to explore it and find out what am I missing.
Well, this is
but the other half is that it is a winner with people I played. Everyone that plays it kind of wants to play it again or play it some more. So there's a lot to be said for that.
You had a theory. What was your theory with the jury on this one?
That it's the end of the night play, right? You're all having a good time, and it's just a silly.
The jury ultimately at some point sequesters themselves, right? And they play all these games over and over and over.
And at one point they thought we have to nominate the game that we ourselves played till 2 o'clock in the morning.
We were talking about it, and Lincoln's like, I don't know, maybe it's at the end of the night, and maybe a third of them are a little drunk, and they're just playing Llama, and they're just they're playing it 12 times in a row. Yeah. And if you play a game 12 times in a row and you're having fun, then why wouldn't you not? Then you think, well, there's obviously something
And
here.
as we played it, it could be the last two people who are still staying up. They can have fun playing it.
Whereas
Just One doesn't work for that anymore, right? So, I don't know. It is weird. It is really weird.
The whole group of nominees.
Weird, wild stuff.
Maybe Llama stands for, maybe this is German for this game is weird.
No. It's like lay all minus points down is essentially what it is.
Lay all minus points
when you translate it's a German acronym.
Like it's a German acronym.
All right, here we go. Let's vote for the game that we think will win.
Right.
3, 2, 1. Just One.
Oh!
Lincoln's going for
I know.
All right, Lincoln.
Could be.
You knew it.
I didn't know it. I really didn't think you'd
Well,
pick that.
there's a couple of things going on in my head, and again, I have no idea what they will pick. But it is the game that plays with two. The game.
Yeah.
You cannot play the other games with two.
Oh, interesting.
You can't even, I feel you can't even truly play those other games well with 3 or 4.
You really can't. I don't think these work for 3 at all.
Well, you guys said you played Just One with 4.
I played it with 4, but it's hanging on.
It works for 4, but you're right. It's not ideal.
To me, this game it's inexpensive. That box sells that game, as you know from a friend.
I have a couple of friends who are like, have you played Llama? I'm like, yeah. And they go, I'm not sure about the game, but I think half the game might just be the artwork of that llama. It's just fun to have that card.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know that, it could be me just second guessing it, but in the traditional sense, and until a party game that requires 7 people wins the jury.
Right. Maybe this is the year.
Exactly. Believe me, when you were saying all of that, I've been waiting to talk about that because it's exactly how I was thinking. I wasn't thinking exactly in those terms, but I felt it's made for a family. You give it at Christmas, grandma gives it to you, but maybe you play it at Christmas, right? With the party, with everybody there.
Perfect.
So then that would make Just One happen. But Llama can play 6, and I think it's a neat game. I don't know if it's, clearly we've got some experienced gamers here who cannot grasp what people dig about this game. So I could be completely off base, but I feel it has a very good chance of winning. I love Just One. I think all 3 of them are really fun games. These 2 maybe more fun But I was having a blast playing with 2 and 3 here today. So
you could be right. I never thought about the 2-player only thing.
Yeah, me neither.
That could be enough
But
to tip it over.
But again, it may be that this is the year that they finally pick something that you need 6 players.
You don't see the rule breakers coming until the rules get broken.
Yeah, of course, right. Yeah, and this probably could be the year. Because I do think Just One is fantastic. I don't know how the jury thinks in that regard. I don't know if it's... Rusty actually played with younger kids yesterday with this game, so and he said it wasn't necessarily sticking. Now, admittedly, there's the children's games for the kids, right? And then you migrate to the SDJs, and then you migrate to the Kennerspiels. So I don't know.
8 and up, 8 and up, 8 and up.
Wow, they all are all 8 and up?
Yeah. I don't know about Werewords for 8.
8.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I was kind of.
But you could probably play that game.
I mean, they could play 20 questions, right?
Yeah,
So,
I guess that's true.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. I know I wasn't thinking I was going to be the only one because me having everybody play that game today because I felt we needed
I
to
could
give an
almost talk
opportunity.
myself into it.
Yeah, but I felt like we
Do I
needed.
change your vote?
No.
You're probably not wrong. I've been my gaming like SDG Kennerspiel a few years back I was the only one to pick as the winner Push a Monster, which I still think is a fantastic game and a better game than Spinderella. But Spinderella is beautiful. I mean, it is a ridiculous and Push a Monster is beautiful too. But again, I was wrong on that one, and you guys were all right. So it's probably going to happen the same way this year. But it's a super light game with some neat, fun things that changes as you play it with different players. Eric is the one that really kind of opened my. Martin was the one that opened my eyes to that. We played it with 2 and 3, I believe, at Nuremberg, and then I played it again. We played it just quickly with Rodney and Rusty and Nikki and I for the video, and I wish we'd played it one more time. I just feel it's one of those games that. The more you play it, the more there's games that are just silly games, and you play them more, and you're like, oh my god, this is fantastic, and this is opened up to me.
Strike,
open up
for example?
Oh yeah, I love Strike. But there are many people that think that game's terrible, and it's not a game at all, right? Or there's no strategy.
Those people are clearly idiots.
Yeah, I don't know that they're idiots, but it's nice to see that game in particular has gotten a cult following, and a re-release essentially.
Oh wait, Mark.
But I would say it has been fun. Maybe it's more, at least the last 2 years when Eric and you all have come back and said because I remember when you guys went gaga over the mind.
Oh yeah, we could not stop
before it showed up kind of.
Yeah, we were like going berserk
so everyone
the first day, and
ginning
everybody's
up
like,
their own homemade copy so they can play it, and Llama kind of had that same thing too.
The other one is...
We'll be interested to see what weird game you guys...
The other game that everybody was talking about this year that was last year game was Crash Career, right? That game got forgotten because of all the buzz about the mind.
I really like that one.
Yeah, that's a great game too. It's one that finally got its just attention this year,
Yeah.
It's weird.
Was that eligible for this year or for
I think they can nominate anything in the last 2 years, but...
so that could have been...
But they generally focus...
In this slot right here?
Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean...
They haven't done a trick taker in a while.
Yeah.
I don't think it's... Right?
I don't know.
Anything else? Final thoughts? Nothing? Nikki P?
I think Lincoln's... All his explanation of why he chose Llama is very persuasive.
I think you're holding that back because you were worried we'd pick Llama if you told us that.
Not at all.
But it's the amount of players.
Oh, I agree.
For sure.
Are you changing your vote?
No, I'm going to stick with this one. But he has an extremely valid point that I did not consider, and I should have considered because they definitely want the family unit kind of game numbers. So 3.
Again,
4.
the jury's all different, though. It could be. It could. Again, that's what I said. It's me trying to see that part is the most difficult part. It's easy for me to pick my favorite, even though they're all great choices.
Sure. Yeah.
It's easier for me to pick my favorit than it is to get into the mind of what the jury is thinking.
Sure.
I will say it's been nice.
But I will say I was the only one to pick Tyler Vikinger in the.
Yes.
You had mentioned this before, but it's neat. The different makeups of the juries for the last bunch of years. These have all been very kind of weird, cool choices, like the last few years, right?
I think the jury is exciting.
They're doing a decent job of picking. There's almost always one game in each pile where a number of people are like, why is this here? Which I think is actually kind of cool, right?
Well, interestingly, too, it's much more international, right? Look at this. Look at this selection here.
Yeah.
We've got a French game, got a U.S. game, German game, Polish game, German game, U.S. game, right? It's pretty neat. I can't wait to. Well, I mean, they had Machikoro a few years ago. There's a lot of great stuff. I think we're in a pretty neato time for the hobby. It's let's just try to make more time to actually play the games. That's the biggest issue.
All right, we will try to do that. And how about you? Why don't you make more time for subscribing to GameNight if you haven't? That was my smoothest segue yet,
okay,
right? Or like us, or what are your thoughts of what you think will win? Why don't you write your little predictions down there in the comment section, and we'll see. All of us will see you for right or wrong. And if you do subscribe, click that little notification bell. That will give you notifications when we put up new episodes.